So today I want to talk about the expectations for SINNOH remakes. I don't usually make videos talking about the Pokemon games, but SINNOH remakes are something I wanted to talk about at least once, since SINNOH is my favorite region and is part of my favorite generation, and like everyone else, I'm fully expecting SINNOH remakes this generation and later this year because it fits the remake pattern release and because it's the 25th anniversary of Pokemon on February 27th. So we can probably expect an announcement on that day. So let's talk about SINNOH remakes. The first thing I want to say is that the expectations for SINNOH remakes are at a pinnacle high. I don't think any previous remake or future remake will have this high of a cliff to climb to satisfy the fans. Aside from maybe X and Y, since they didn't really get a third version game. But as of right now, it kind of feels like people are expecting more from these SINNOH remakes than they will from Gen 9, which sounds pretty crazy. Because it seems like if these remakes don't turn out good, or at least how fans want them, I think a lot of people will be dropping the Pokemon games, or maybe even the franchise in general. And it kind of feels like everything is on the line for Pokemon fans and for Game Freak with these SINNOH remakes. Game Freak has been working on Generation 8 since the middle of Generation 7, and it's not like they have to recreate a whole new region with a whole new game. So they've had plenty of time to work on these games and improve upon the games based on how fans have reacted to Sword and Shield and based on how Diamond and Pearl were in general. Like, they have a great starting point. If they can improve on one of the greatest Pokemon games of all time, then they're definitely going to be in trouble. So let's talk about what people want from SINNOH remakes and what I think we can and should expect from them. And I'll also give you my overall thoughts on what's realistic and what's not. So the first thing I want to talk about is the story aspect of the game, and mainly the timeline, since what timeline we in has been a major factor of the newer Pokemon games. This will also help us determine how much will change from the original Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum story, and what could possibly change. I think everyone would just like to stay in the mega timeline of Pokemon, but we kinda don't even know what timeline we're in right now in Sword and Shield. It could be the original timeline since we haven't seen any hints of Mega Evolution. It could also be the mega timeline, while at the same time it could just be an entirely new timeline with Dynamax Pokemon. Either way, everyone I've seen wants SINNOH remakes to be in the mega timeline with a Mega Evolution story, and it makes sense considering Professor Sycamore was a student of Professor Rowan who also studied evolution. So you could easily just change the storyline to that Professor Rowan studied Mega Evolution, which is why Sycamore got into it too. I also think seeing an origin form Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina would be pretty cool too, since they are the creation trio Pokemon. And so I think they would definitely have a origin form considering they're way older than Kyogre and Groudon. But the problem here regarding Mega Evolution is that I don't think Game Freak would reuse an old concept from 2 generations ago. If this was Generation 7, I'd say maybe, but they probably won't for Generation 8. We've seen Mega Evolution in the anime recently, or fairly recently, but that's not enough to convince me that they'll implement it into the games. Which means that we're probably getting our least favorite gimmick, or at least my least favorite gimmick, Dynamax, in the most awaited remakes of all time, and that already makes for a terrible combination. One complaint people are going to have immediately is going to be the Gigantamax/Dynamax retcon, since it was stated in Sword and Shield repeatedly that Dynamax phenomenon only happens in the Galar region, and we learn in the game that this is because of Galar particles. But since Galar particles are from Eternatus, they can easily just say that Eternatus did the same thing in the Sinnoh region, so now there are Sinnoh particles. And why is Eternatus in the Sinnoh region? Who knows? Maybe it's one of the 1000 arms of Arceus. I've seen that theory before. That would be pretty cool and would explain Eternatus's broken stats in its Eternamax form. But either way, they'll come up with something to implement Dynamax Pokemon in the Diamond and Pearl remakes. We've already seen a bunch of small references in Sword and Shield and in the DLC that hint to not just SINNOH remakes, but the return of Dynamax Pokemon, with people like Honey talking about ways to use it in different places. But even without those hints, it would be logical to infer that they would use the current gimmick of the current generation in a remake. in that generation. So because of that, we're somewhat forced to accept that Sinnoh Remakes will end up with Gigantamax and Dynamax Pokemon, even though no one wants it. I'd honestly prefer we just got a standard remake like with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but I don't think they're gonna give us that. I think how Game Freak implements Dynamax into the games will be key in how willing the fans are to accept it. I honestly think if they're gonna put Dynamax in the games, they should just save it for the post game or something. And I'd honestly prefer a Mega Evolution story in the main story. Or even if there is no Mega Evolution, just save the Dynamax stuff for the post game with Dialga and Palkia or something. Story aspects aside though, when it comes to gameplay mechanics, some things we can look forward to are the Sinnoh region in 3D, since this will be on the Nintendo Switch, with all the soundtracks from Diamond and Pearl, so that'll at least be something we can look forward to regardless of how the game turns out in all the other aspects. We probably aren't getting HMs either, so that'll be a good thing too, but this will be questionable since HMs are a major part of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So it makes you wonder if they're going to implement something like the Ride Pokemon or special moves like there were in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Or will they just modify all the routes severely? Because you kind of need HMs in a lot of places in Diamond and Pearl. Rock Climb, Dig, Flash, and Defog are three that you're definitely going to need along with Strength. I can see them avoiding using Strength and Cut maybe, but Rock Climb, Surf, and Defog are definitely needed to pass through some areas unless they just plan on adding stairs or having the areas have no fog in certain locations. Something else I'm expecting in the Sinnoh remakes is for the Great Marsh to turn into a wild area type of place. And I say that because I think the Great Marsh, or I guess the wild area, will be something that'll be implemented into every region in some facet going into future games. I do think the Galar wild area is way too big though. I think Galar is mostly wild area if you include the Asile of Armor and the Crown Tundra, than it is cities and everything else. Something else I think we'll be getting in the Sinnoh remakes is the return of the Battle Frontier, since they probably realized the mistake that they made by not including it in ORAS. They literally left us with a sign saying Battle Frontier in progress, which was the biggest troll move ever. And their excuse for not having the Battle Frontier last time was that Pokemon fans are on their smartphones nowadays, so they don't want to spend time doing the Battle Frontier, which was the most BS excuse ever. We're probably also going to get the return of Pokemon contests. I don't think they're highly coveted and people really care, but if you don't put them in the games, I'm sure somebody will be mad about them. I also want to see the return of Pokemon seals, and in case you don't know, there's something you would put on your Pokeball and you can make them say a word or just have stars when they pop out, and I just thought that was pretty cool. Another thing I want to talk about is character customization. They could just not return like they did in ORAS, where we didn't get character customization, we just got the original outfits for May and Brendan. But I think we'll end up with the platinum outfits and the regular outfits, and because of that, I think we'll just end up getting character customization built into the game anyway, even if it's not able to be accessed until the post game. But either way, I'm not really concerned about the character customization too much, although I do know people are going to complain like they do about the trees not being in 4K, so Game Freak could just include it from the start. Now, one major aspect that I think definitely needs to be included is Pokémon Following You. This 100% needs to be included into the game. No excuses at all this time. They were in Let's Go and in the Sword and Shield DLC, and we know that walking animations were hidden in the data of Sun and Moon. So Game Freak has had plenty of time to figure out how to properly implement Pokémon Following You into the game. Something else I want to talk about briefly is regional forms, since they're the only way we're going to get any more new Generation 8 Pokemon, since we probably aren't getting any more Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC. So I guess that would mean we would have to get Sinnohian forms or Sinnoh formed Pokemons, which I don't think is actually likely, but I do think it would be pretty cool. The next thing I want to talk about is the difficulty of the game. So the Sinnoh games need to be just as difficult as they were before, but obviously with the Fairy type, facing people like Cynthia and her Garchomp aren't going to be as deadly as they were before, especially since she gifts us a Togepi egg during the main story, plus Azumarill is going to be a straight Garchomp killer. But I would like the option to turn off the EXP share, which has been stuck on in this current generation, which drove me absolutely insane in Sword and Shield. And literally everyone was complaining about being over leveled by the time they got to the Pokemon League, or I guess the Champions Cup. So Game Freak, I really hope they find a way to turn off the EXP share, or maybe just not include it, or make it like the old EXP share where there's only one of them, or you can only use it on one Pokemon at a time. I don't want any hand holding in these Sinnoh games, because that would defeat the point of recreating the game if you're going to take away one of its signature aspects, that being the difficulty. The next thing I want to talk about is the Pokédex. There are two major things I want to talk about regarding the Pokédex. The first one being the number of Pokemon in the game. In the base game of Sword and Shield, there are 400 Pokemon, meaning you only need to catch those 400 Pokemon to complete the Pokédex and get the Shiny Charm. The Sinnoh Regional Dex is 210 Pokemon, and the National Dex is 493 Pokemon, from Bulbasaur to Arceus. So at the bare minimum, I'm asking for the return of the National Dex, which means, and the National Dex up to Sinnoh, so just the first 493 Pokemon. Lots of them are already in Sword and Shield, so they just really have to boot them over, since they're probably going to use the same engine as Sword and Shield. So in short, I need the Pokédex for the Sinnoh region to have 493 Pokemon available at the bare minimum, because obviously they're gonna have to make the Galar Pokemon compatible with the game too. But I need the Pokédex to look the exact same way it did in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum in this game. Even if that means excluding Generation 5, 6, and 7 Pokemon from this Sinnoh remake. The other thing I want to talk about regarding the Pokédex is whether the Pokédex we're getting is going to be a Platinum Pokédex or a Diamond and Pearl Pokédex, since technically this is going to be a Diamond and Pearl remake. And this is important because in the Diamond and Pearl remake, there are literally only 5 Fire-type Pokemon, the Chimchar line and its 3 Pokemon, and then Ponyta and Rapidash. So when you face Flint in the Elite Four, he literally only has Rapidash and Infernape, which doesn't look too good as a Fire-type member of the Elite Four. So I'm really hoping we get the Platinum Pokédex, although the one flaw with the Platinum Pokédex, or I guess the Pokemon Platinum game in general, is that Cynthia had a weaker team than she did in Diamond and Pearl, because I guess Game Freak considered her too strong in that game. So I'm really hoping we get the Platinum Dex, and I don't think anyone will be mad at us getting the better Pokédex or taking any aspects from the 3rd version game, because why wouldn't you take one of the best aspects of the completed version of the game? If anything, we should be getting Pokemon Platinum split in 2, with just their version differences like the exclusive Pokemon like Dialga, Palkia, and the other in-game exclusives. Now the last thing I want to talk about is Giratina and the 6th event Pokemon in the Sinnoh games. So first I want to talk about Giratina. Since these are Diamond and Pearl remakes, we aren't going to be getting Giratina in the main story. So I think like Oras, we're probably going to be getting a Platinum episode that focuses on Giratina, similar to the Delta episode in Oras, which means we're probably going to get to go to the Distortion World, which should be pretty cool seeing the Distortion World in 3D. Game Freak doing anything but that would be a complete miss and waste of opportunity. So with Giratina out of the way, let's talk about the event Pokemon. So the first post-game event I want to talk about is with Heatran, who can be found in Stark Mountain in the post-game. And hopefully they find a way to tie this all together with the Battle Frontier. Buck is also involved in this post-game because he's searching for Heatran. And Looker, this is when Looker appears too. And now that I think about it, we haven't seen Looker since what, Generation 7 or 6, where he lost his memory? So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I thought for sure Looker would appear in the Galar based games since he's based on a detective, but that wasn't the case. The next event I want to talk about is regarding Cresselia, who you could meet at Full Moon Island. And after you meet it there, it ends up just roaming the Sinnoh region, and Cresselia is the counterpart to Darkrai. So hopefully they do something tying them both together at the same time. And the last event that we actually had made available to us was the one with Regigigas, where he could only be obtained if you had Regirock, Ice and Steel, and brung it to the temple in Snowpoint City. I wonder if the lore behind these three Pokemon, or I guess Regigigas, will change with the inclusion of Regieleki and Regidrago, and maybe we'll need them to reach Regigigas in these remakes. It'll be interesting to find out what they do with that. So with those events out of the way, let's talk about the three events that weren't made available to us, but are still well known among the community. So the first one I want to talk about is the Shaman event, which you can only access if you had Oak's letter, and if you did, you would get to go to the Flower Paradise and meet Shaman. This definitely needs to be included into the game this time, whether it be in the post game or if they want to make it even more special, have it as free DLC later. Either way, Game Freak 100% needs to put this into the game. The next event I want to talk about is the Darkrai event, where you would get to go to New Moon Island if you had a member card, which was actually never released. And I found it weird that they let you go to Cresselia on Full Moon Island in the game, but they didn't give you access to Darkrai even though they're a pair. If Game Freak really wanted to surprise us with the Darkrai event, they could have it in Alamos Town like from the movie. But then again, we have to keep our expectations low for Game Freak since we have to stay realistic. Although I don't think it's too unreasonable to have one more city or town in the game for this specific event. So the last event I want to talk about is the biggest one, and this will be the Arceus event. And this is where you would get the Azure Flute, and you would get to meet Arceus in the Hall of Origin at level 80. This is something that's 100% needed along with the Platinum episode in these remakes. Even if we don't get the other events and they just end up as gift Pokemon, the Arceus event and the Platinum episode 100% need to be a part of these games. Giratina is part of the creation trio with Dialga and Palkia, and Arceus is not only just their creator, but the god of all Pokemon. So I think an event for Arceus is absolutely overdue and appropriate for these Sinnoh remakes. I know there's an event in the Johto, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver games too, but we need one in the Sinnoh region since that's where Arceus hails from. I think they should also borrow another aspect from the movie for the Arceus event like they should with the Darkrai, and have the Jewel of Life instead of the 18 plates. And with the Jewel of Life, Arceus can access its full power. That way Arceus has a form that's strong enough to match Mega Rayquaza and Ultra Necrozma, since they're two Pokemon that are actually stronger than him when they power up. I think if Game Freak can pull this off, we'll have probably the perfect Sinnoh remakes on our hand. And one last event I want to add is a Manaphy event, since we're not going to get any Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games to get a secret Manaphy egg. I think this will be the perfect time to introduce Manaphy, since all the other Sinnoh legendary Pokemon and mythical Pokemon have events built into the game. I think that now that DLC is a possibility in Pokemon games, that we should move away from just getting mythical Pokemon in the Pokemon Center, and that they should just send us built-in events. Even if they all come at the back end of the generation, it'll at least give us something fun to do before the next gen starts. I honestly really hate that we get Pokemon at the Pokemon Center instead of some sort of an event, or at least have someone in-game hand them to you and give us a story behind it. One thing I wanted that we didn't get was a Zarude event in-game, since I thought it would take place in the Asylum Armor, since it provided the perfect opportunity with location and everything, but that didn't happen. So I think a Manaphy event would be great if we got one booted into the games, and that goes along with all the other events that I mentioned too. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about regarding Sinnoh remakes and the expectations for them. Like I said earlier, the expectations for Sinnoh remake are at a pinnacle high, and I really hope Game Freak realizes this and goes all out in these games like they did for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I didn't have a problem with Oras, but I think people are going to want a game better than Oras, Because no offense to Hoenn, but Sinnoh just has way more going on with all its lore and origins of different Pokemon, with the creation trio and whatnot going on. So the expectations for these games are going to be a lot higher. Aside from maybe Mega Evolution, I don't think I asked for anything too unreasonable since we've seen Game Freak do it all before. But with that being said, it's going to be up to them to determine how much effort they actually want to put into this game and how much time they've already invested into it. But with that being said, let me know what your expectations are for Sinnoh Remakes and what you think is actually possible from the list I talked about. With that being said, thanks for watching and bye.